A single backyard hen lays approximately 250 to 300 eggs per year. Most of those eggs come in spring and summer, when daylight hours trigger peak production. In winter, production drops to nearly zero. Before refrigeration, every homesteader knew this cycle, and every homesteader had a solution. In May, when the hens were laying 5 eggs a day, you mixed a batch of lime water, filled a crock, and started submerging. By October, you had 300 to 400 eggs sealed in your pantry. By February, when the hens had stopped laying entirely, you were still eating eggs every morning. Fresh, safe, room temperature, no electricity. Your great-grandmother never experienced an egg shortage. She never paid $6 a dozen. She never threw away a carton because a printed date told her to. She had a $4 bag of lime, and she had knowledge that an entire industry spent the last 70 years making sure you would never learn. Before we go any further, this video is strictly for educational and informational purposes. We are not advising you to try, replicate, or use any method shown in this video. Always consult qualified food safety professionals before attempting any preservation technique. Now, let us talk about the method they erased. Every chicken egg is a small engineering marvel. The shell is composed almost entirely of calcium carbonate, the same mineral found in limestone and marble, but it is not solid. A single eggshell contains between 7,000 and 17,000 microscopic pores. These pores are essential during incubation. They allow oxygen to reach the developing embryo and carbon dioxide to escape. But for a table egg, those pores are a vulnerability. They are doors, and bacteria, moisture loss, and oxidation are all trying to walk through them. Nature solved this problem before humans ever touched an egg. Just before a hen lays, her body secretes a thin protein coating over the shell called the bloom, also known as the cuticle. This coating is barely visible. You cannot feel it, but it seals those thousands of pores, creating a natural barrier against bacteria and environmental contamination. A freshly laid egg with its bloom intact can remain safe at room temperature for weeks. In Europe, where regulations prohibit washing eggs, they are sold on open shelves in every supermarket. No refrigerator, no cold case, no expiration date panic. The bloom does the work. Now here is where the story splits. In the United States, the USDA required egg producers to wash all eggs beginning in 1970, following the passage of the Egg Products Inspection Act on December 29, 1970. The washing process uses soap and hot water. It makes the shells clean, white, and aesthetically appealing to American consumers, but it also strips the bloom completely. Once the bloom is gone, those 7,000 to 17,000 pores are wide open. Bacteria can enter, moisture can escape. The egg begins to deteriorate immediately. And so, to compensate for the protection that washing destroyed, the USDA mandated refrigeration. From that point forward, every American egg had to be kept at or below 45 degrees Fahrenheit from the moment it left the wash line until the moment it reached your kitchen. The United States did not start refrigerating eggs because eggs need refrigeration. It started refrigerating eggs because it washed off the thing that made refrigeration unnecessary. Long before the USDA existed, homesteaders had their own method of sealing those pores. It was not a natural bloom. It was better. It was a chemical seal that lasted not weeks, but months. In some cases, over a year. The method is called water glassing. The chemistry is straightforward. You take a food-grade substance called calcium hydroxide, commonly sold as pickling lime. You mix 1 ounce of pickling lime into 1 quart of clean water. You stir until the powder dissolves into a milky, slightly cloudy solution. You pour this solution into a food-safe container, a glass jar, a ceramic crock, or a food-grade bucket. And then you take fresh, unwashed eggs with the bloom still intact, and you gently submerge them, pointy side down, making sure the liquid covers the eggs by at least 2 inches. What happens next is inorganic chemistry at its simplest. The calcium hydroxide in the solution reacts with the carbon dioxide that naturally permeates the eggshell to form calcium carbonate. That is the same mineral the shell is made of. In effect, the lime water builds a second shell over the first one, a mineral seal that blocks every pore. Bacteria cannot enter, oxygen cannot enter, moisture cannot escape. The egg is locked in a state of suspended freshness. The cost of 1 pound of food-grade pickling lime is approximately $4. That single pound, mixed with water at the correct ratio, produces enough solution to preserve dozens upon dozens of eggs. The container sits in a cool, dark pantry. No electricity, no temperature monitoring, no machinery of any kind. The eggs remain edible for 12 to 18 months. Some homesteaders have documented cracking open water-glassed eggs after a full 2 years and reporting that the yolk is intact. The white holds together, the smell is clean, and the taste in scrambled or baked applications is indistinguishable from a fresh egg. There is a second version of the method using sodium silicate, a pale yellow liquid, also known as water glass, mixed with water in a 1:9 ratio. Sodium silicate creates a gel-like seal over the shell that achieves the same result. This version was the original commercial method, sold in pharmacies throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries. A single gallon of sodium silicate solution could preserve approximately 1,000 eggs. Both methods work. Both have been documented for over 200 years. Both cost almost nothing. Water glassing is not a fringe technique invented by modern homesteaders on the internet. It is one of the oldest documented food preservation methods in the Western world, with continuous use stretching back to the early 1800s. In 1896, Fannie Merritt Farmer published the Boston Cooking School Cookbook, the single most influential American cookbook ever printed. The book that standardized level measurements in American recipes, the book that sold millions of copies across decades of reprints. That book included step-by-step instructions for preserving eggs in water glass. This was not a footnote. It was standard kitchen knowledge. During World War I, the British Ministry of Food recommended sodium silicate egg preservation to households across the United Kingdom. Refrigeration was scarce. Supply chains were strained. Families needed to stockpile protein. Water glassing was the official government-endorsed solution. During World War II, the same recommendation was repeated. Across the Atlantic, American soldiers in the Pacific Theater used the method to preserve fresh eggs for up to 2 years in tropical conditions, without refrigeration. Ceramic crocks filled with sodium silicate solution kept eggs viable on remote island bases, where cold storage simply did not exist. After the war, veterans came home with the knowledge. Rural households continued the practice through the late 1940s. A pioneer named Arnold Truhitt, documented by the Lake Country Museum, recalled that his mother stored eggs in a crock filled with water glass solution in the basement. She used them primarily for baking, but noted they could also be fried or made into omelets. This was normal. This was unremarkable. This was what everyone did. And then, within approximately 1 decade, the practice vanished from mainstream American life. The timeline is not subtle. In the 1950s, household refrigerator ownership in America surged. Supermarkets expanded their cold sections. The egg industry consolidated from millions of small farms into large commercial operations, with standardized washing, grading, and cold chain distribution. By 1970, the USDA mandated washing and refrigeration. By 1980, water glassing had disappeared from every major cookbook, every government pamphlet, and every home economics curriculum in the country. It was not banned, it was not disproven. It was simply replaced by something more expensive. And then it was forgotten. Let us follow the money. The global egg market was valued at approximately $257 billion in 2024. The commercial refrigeration market was valued at roughly $85.6 billion in the same year. According to the United Nations Environment Program, the global food cold chain is responsible for approximately 4% of total global greenhouse gas emissions. That includes the energy required to cool warehouses, run refrigerated trucks, power grocery store cold cases, and keep your home refrigerator running 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. In the United States alone, the egg supply chain involves hundreds of millions of hens, thousands of processing facilities, a fleet of refrigerated trucks, a network of temperature-controlled warehouses, and a retail system that stamps every carton with an expiration date and discards any product that passes it. In the United Kingdom, 720 million eggs were thrown away in a single year, primarily because consumers saw the printed date and assumed the eggs were unsafe. Globally, food loss and waste accounts for 8 to 10% of annual greenhouse gas emissions, nearly 5 times the total emissions from the entire aviation sector. Every egg that expires on a shelf is an egg that must be replaced. Every egg that is replaced generates revenue. Every link in the cold chain collects its margin. The farmer, the processor, the washer, the packager, the cold warehouse, the refrigerated trucker, the grocery store, the home appliance manufacturer. Every single one of them profits from the fact that an American egg has a 3 to 5 week shelf life and must be kept cold from the moment it is laid to the moment it is consumed. Now contrast that with a water-glassed egg. It requires no washing facility, no grading machine, no cold warehouse, no refrigerated truck, no grocery store cold case, no home refrigerator, no expiration date. It sits in a $4 lime solution in a glass jar on a pantry shelf for over a year. It generates zero revenue for any link in any supply chain. That is why the method was not suppressed. It did not need to be suppressed. It was simply made irrelevant by an infrastructure that profits from the problem it claims to solve. In 2024 and 2025, the United States experienced one of the worst avian influenza outbreaks in its history. Over 30 million laying hens were killed across 9 states. The national egg supply contracted sharply. By March 2025, the average price of a dozen large grade eggs hit an all-time record of $6.23. American consumers spent an estimated $14.5 billion more on eggs than in previous years. Grocery stores imposed purchase limits. Food banks reported shortages. The crisis made national headlines for months. And during every single day of that crisis, pickling lime was sitting on the canning aisle of nearly every grocery store in the country. A 1-pound bag, $4, enough to preserve enough eggs to feed a family for a year. Nobody picked it up. Not because they chose not to, because they did not know it existed. That is the cost of erased knowledge, not in dollars. In vulnerability, the families who suffered most during the 2025 egg crisis were the families most dependent on the supply chain. The families least affected were the homesteaders, the preppers, the backyard chicken owners, the people who had stumbled onto a 200-year-old method on the internet and put a crock of lime water in their pantry 6 months before the shortage began. The information was there, the chemistry was there, the lime was there, on a shelf, for $4. The only thing missing was the knowledge that an entire industry had allowed to disappear. It is worth noting that the rest of the world did not make the same choice America made. The European Union explicitly prohibits the washing of eggs intended for retail sale. The reasoning is simple. Washing removes the bloom. Removing the bloom creates a dependency on refrigeration. Refrigeration adds cost and energy consumption at every stage of the supply chain. By leaving the bloom intact, Europe avoided the entire problem. European eggs sit on open shelves at room temperature in every supermarket across the continent. They are marked best before 28 days after laying. They do not require cold trucks, cold warehouses, or cold retail cases. The European approach is not primitive. It is not less safe. According to Vincent Goudianet, a poultry veterinarian and scientific advisor to the International Egg Commission, both the American and European systems achieve comparable food safety outcomes. The difference is that one costs vastly more energy, vastly more infrastructure, and vastly more money. America chose the expensive version. Europe chose the simple version. And the homesteaders of the 1800s chose the version that was cheaper than both a jar, some lime, and patience. Here is what 2 centuries of practice and the chemistry of calcium hydroxide tell us. Water glassing works on any fresh, unwashed poultry egg with the bloom intact. Chicken, duck, quail. It does not work on store-bought eggs in the United States because those eggs have been washed and the bloom has been removed. The solution is 1 ounce of food-grade pickling lime per 1 quart of clean water. Distilled water is recommended to avoid mineral interference. Eggs are placed pointy side down, submerged by at least 2 inches of solution. The container is sealed and stored in a cool, dark place. Eggs added first should be used first. When you are ready to use a water-glassed egg, you rinse the shell thoroughly under clean water. One important detail: because the lime water seal blocks the pores so completely, the egg cannot release internal pressure when heated. If you attempt to boil a water-glassed egg without first puncturing a tiny pinhole in the shell, the egg may crack or burst in the boiling water. A single pinprick with a thumbtack before boiling solves this entirely. The method is not suitable for eggs that have been previously washed, cracked, or stored for more than a few days. A single cracked egg can contaminate an entire batch. Cleanliness and freshness are not optional. They are the method. The world produces approximately 93 million metric tons of eggs every year. Hundreds of millions of people eat them daily. And the entire global infrastructure for moving those eggs from farm to table. The washing, the refrigeration, the cold chain, the expiration dates, the billions of dollars in energy costs and food waste, all of it rests on a single assumption, that eggs must be kept cold or they will spoil. That assumption is true for washed eggs. It has never been true for unwashed eggs stored in a $4 solution of lime and water. Every war your country has ever fought in the last 200 years, your government knew about this method. Every cookbook your great-grandmother owned had the instructions. Every farm family in America practiced it until approximately 1950. The chemistry has not changed. The eggshell has not changed. The lime has not changed. The only thing that changed is what you were allowed to remember. A $257 billion egg industry, an $85 billion refrigeration industry, a 4% contribution to global greenhouse gas emissions from the cold chain alone. And on the other side of the equation, a 1-pound bag of pickling lime, $4, available right now on a shelf in the store where you buy your $6 eggs. Your great-grandmother would have found this situation very strange. She would have found this entire video unnecessary. She would have just mixed the lime. This video was made for educational and informational purposes only. We do not recommend or advise that you attempt any preservation method without consulting qualified food safety professionals. Always follow your local food safety regulations. In early 2025, American egg prices hit an all-time record. Over 30 million hens were killed by avian influenza. Consumers spent $14.5 billion more than in a normal year. The lime was on the shelf the entire time. It still is. It costs $4. Whether you ever pick it up is between you and the industry that hopes you never will.